There we go. Excellent. So, Cheryl, let's go ahead. We're talking about mental health treatment for our students, and this is lovingly called CSCT. So, Cheryl, let's share where we are with that. Thank you. Thank you for unmuting.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you on this beautiful Montana day as we hit a week of a little bit cooler weather coming our direction. So a quick update related to CSCT. We met with districts again yesterday. We've had multiple meetings with our districts. We've had a meeting with providers. We've met with some of the CEOs of providers as well to do question and answers. We've met multiple times with DPHHS. We've met with folks from the governor's office, from the budget office and policy as well, and have been working through the technical guidance that DPHHS has provided. So a couple of key changes that have occurred that we're working on. One recommendation to districts, and it's a very strong recommendation, is that the negotiated rate, the services the providers will provide for our students needs to be at minimum 65% of whatever the per diem rate is, the new term being used, or the rate that the feds approve, AKA CMS. So when you look at that, the reason for that is so districts don't end up in a situation where they're making money off of federal funds. That's not something that's allowable through our audit processes and understanding there. So the other big question is around the 35%, and those are the match differences for Montana at this time, is can the districts get all of their 35% back? Well, they can get back what they can identify as expenditures directly to that. And so we're working right now with our finance team and with some districts on what does that look like? What are specific costs that you can allocate to expenses related to the match? So the goal is that districts will be able to get back as much up to 35% as they can substantiate legitimate expenses to CSCT. That's what got the old process of in-kind disallowed in 2016, was that the expenditures were too generic, too general, and so the feds disallowed that. So that's what we're working on at this time and hope to have that completed this week. DPHHS has submitted the Medicaid state plan to the feds. It is open right now for public comment. And so if this is something of high interest to you, I have posted it in the chat. So you have access to look at that public comment period and what the state plan is proposing at this time. And within that is specific elements of CSCT. So happy Tuesday, everybody. Good to see you.
I know that might have been a very short update, but Cheryl has been working very, very diligently on this, and even starting in February when the session was going on, to ensure a great understanding of this transfer of the responsibility to the OPI, but more importantly, to make sure that our students are served. And we have been working, we've had multiple discussions and calls with the districts that do indeed have previously served our students. So thank you, Cheryl, for that. So we also have critical race theory. So let's discuss this. Christian with AG's office, if you would just give us an update. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. There we go. Can you all hear me? I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, good morning, everybody. Christian Corrigan from the AG's office. Just wanted to update everybody. The AG's office and OPI have been working on getting a document together that sort of translates the AG's opinion as best we can into plain English that answers some questions that I know OPI has been receiving and that even we've heard at the AG's office for schools. I know we're working on that and trying to get that out as quickly as possible so that it's helpful for schools and everybody going forward. I think the one thing I would just add is that whether it's now or in the next few days, if there are questions that you have related to the AG opinion or specific things that have come up, feel free to, you can go ahead and ask them now or reach out to OPI and we'll be happy to take that under consideration. As you said, we're trying to come up with something that's helpful and covers to the best we can, any questions or concerns with how to proceed under the AG opinion.
Thank you, Christian. Any questions at this point that might be wanting to be asking Christian?
Superintendent, I have a question if you don't mind, more just generally. What are some of the questions you guys are getting? We haven't heard any at the Board of Public Ed, but just kind of curious what you guys might be hearing on your end.
Thank you, McCall. We have, as school boards are meeting because of budgets and they're meeting because of safely opening their schools and things as that. The questions have come up on what does it mean with curriculum? We had a great partnership with the Board of Public Ed and our social studies standards, which encompass history and civics. And I believe there are questions regarding what does that mean? I know one district in particular asked me from their, their board chair, what are the consequences if indeed teachers do teach this? What does it mean when a teacher teaches this? So they're looking at it granularly as well as they're looking at as curriculum adoption. That's pretty much the wide gamut that we have at this point. Thank you. Any other questions that you might have of Christian or myself? Dale, I see you're unmuted. Is there a question you'd like to ask?
No, Superintendent, that's my mistake. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Christian, thank you for your time and effort on this. More will be coming on this to allow for doors to open in a manner that curriculum and everything is as lawful as it can possibly be. But more importantly, as I had just shared, supporting teachers and how they can give that great curriculum model to all of our students across our state. So we're going on. We have Crystal Andrews. She is our licensing expert. Crystal, you've got an update on us for Chapter 57, which is licensing, and you can share your screen as well.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so we have been meeting for Chapter 57 recommendation and review for the past 8 weeks. I've went over this with you the past last time. We have a really robust group of members. Our task force consists of 25 experts in the field and that are all very interested in Chapter 57 licensure. And then we have that second layer of that focus group who we bring the recommendations from the task force or the topics of discussion to the focus group, and then they give their feedback and offer some opinions, and then that goes back to the task force. So it really works well hand in hand, having so many people involved.
So Crystal, could you share your screen? I know you've got a great presentation. Perfect.
Is it share? It's not sharing? I'm sorry, I see it on mine.
Now it is, but I do believe, we're on the process. There is the members. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay, I
Crystal.
apologize. No, I could see it on mine. I guess I just assumed. So as I said, there's the two layers. We have the task force and then the focus group where the information goes back and forth, where we have a lot of people involved. And a question that keeps coming up is sort of the process and what that looks like. So Right now, we're working within the task force where they are reviewing the research and making recommendations to Chapter 57. From there, it goes to the OPI legal and communication team, who will be crafting the words around the recommendations. And then it will go back to the task force to look over and review. And from there, it will go to the superintendent, and then it will go to the Board of Public Ed. So we're working hard to try to get a lot of recommendations to the OPI legal and communications team. We've had lots of great conversations, and we're trying to stay a little bit more focused in. I think we are so heavily invested and involved, and that we sometimes try to talk too much about too many things that we're really trying to reel in and get into these Chapter 57 rules. So our timeline is looking like we started our meetings in June. So like I said, the past 8 weeks we've been meeting. We're hoping to get our recommendations. We have some for the next board meeting in September, just as a review. And then we're hoping to get our timeline is to be done by January, and we have a lot to look at. So that's our goal. I know Chapter 58, Zach will be sharing, has a little bit of a different timeline. And so the recommendations that we have so far, we passed a vote for the counselor to administrative pathway that I shared with you at the last meeting. We've been talking a lot about out-of-state teachers and having some more equity with in-state teachers. And we're getting into talking about the endorsement areas. Praxis keeps coming up. We haven't passed any votes on the praxis yet, but it is definitely a topic of conversation. And from there, we've been looking into sorry, I didn't realize I included this. So the endorsements, the big area is the middle school endorsement, that we don't have that in Montana, and that a big conversation was around how broad our endorsements areas are. For example, the Broadfield social studies, covering, and that's mainly because we have so many districts that are rural and, have teachers that are covering more than one area. And so then this next week, we're getting into tiered licensure was something that came up at our last meeting and what that looks like. And we're looking at a lot of research on that. And from there, hopefully we're keep continuing to evolve and get into a lot of the areas that keep coming up within our licensure committee, unusual cases. And we're working hard at trying to really make sure that we're getting the best teachers here in Montana in the most efficient and easiest way. And, obviously making sure that they're quality educators as well. So I kind of went fast, but I know I had a short amount of time. If you ever need anything or have more questions, please feel free to contact me. There's my information, and I will put in the chat after my presentation where you can find on the OPI website where you can join us. And it's a public meeting for both Chapter 57 and 58. So if you'd ever like to join us, we'd love to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Crystal. Any questions you might have of Crystal and our process? I do know with our partners at the Board of Public Ed that we very much appreciate the flexibilities that have been offered. And I know there is a hearing on another unusual case very shortly before our formal September meeting. So I believe school districts are thirsty for quality and also for that flexibility. Crystal, thank you for that. Zach, I do believe you're next. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Superintendent Arntzen, and good to be here with everybody today. I also have a PowerPoint. Can everyone see that?
Good job.
All right. My work here is done. No, just kidding. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today will be very similar, obviously, to what Crystal has covered with Chapter 58. But I will just share who's on our task force. We have, I feel, a good mix of different stakeholders, a number of people who have experience at leading EPP programs, but also some administrators, some tribal people, Jennifer Smith from Macy and Jonathan J. Eagleman from up in Rocky Boy, as well as a community member and parent from Conrad. So we've had some good discussions, and I think we have a good diversity of perspectives. This is basically, we're in the same place. We are in the review, research, and recommendation process. We have sent some recommendations over to the legal department of OPI. They will be getting back to our task force with those ARM language changes so that we can begin to review those and then make them as formal recommendations to the superintendent, and then from there on to the Board of Public Ed. Some of the things that we had a focus group that, in the research phase, some of the things that came out of that, some of the themes were high quality educators having not just the content knowledge, but really strong pedagogical practices and knowledge, as well as interpersonal skills. There's been a lot of conversation about the importance of relationships, particularly in Montana, where we have a lot of, very rural schools where those educators are, very visible in the community, and having, really strong relationships with parents and community members as well as students is really important. A lot of conversation around, getting beyond sort of the traditional sort of practicum and student teaching experience, but more variety, more experience, teaching in different environments before going into the field. Also, a lot of conversation around mentorship. That one's been interesting, some challenges there. Just identifying mentors could be a challenge, but there is a strong feeling that young educators really need a lot of guidance from experienced educators. And then some social emotional learning, trauma-informed instruction. We have made some recommended changes in the ARM to incorporate social emotional learning. And then also a lot of conversation around just, is there a way to provide some flexibility within our EPPs to get folks who maybe don't come from the traditional sort of teacher, background, through an EPP and to certification, i.e. if they're a community member who, has worked in some other field, but, has strong relationships with the school district, is interested in becoming an educator. What are some ways to maybe streamline that process as much as possible to get them into a classroom? Like 57, we have the task force, and we also have a feedback group. Some of the things that we've heard from that feedback group are that, these EPP changes can't happen in a vacuum. That, if we're setting new sort of standards and expectations for proficiencies within an EPP program, that those also need to be, there needs to be an effort on the K-12 side to really evaluate and foster those same skills and abilities when teachers get into the field. Some folks have said they think inductions, sort of that, graduation to being a full certified teacher are important. Some terms, learning styles, replaced with personalized learning and continuous improvement, replaced with continuous growth. And then just, we are up against a bit of a time crunch. And, we may not get through all of chapter 58, but, this task force will do their level best to get as much of it done as possible, with the understanding that there may be a future task force that take on other parts of chapter 58 in the future. And then some talk about placement, just the fact that, a lot of teacher placements go to A and AA schools. And so again, when we're talking about trying to get that diversity of experience with our candidates, figuring out how we can get more of those candidates experience in some of our smaller schools. And then just remembering that everything we do in chapter 58, that we need to also be cognizant of how it impacts things in accreditation. So the way that we've been talking through this is there's a series of lever topics that we are discussing and then looking at the relevant sections of the ARM where we might make changes around those lever topics. So again, pedagogy, real world experiences, the things that I've kind of already covered. We are kind of chunk by chunk going through these lever topics and then going back and looking within the ARM and saying, okay, where can we make some changes that addresses these, but also kind of achieves the vision of what the task force thinks a quality educator candidate should look like. So that's kind of where we are. We will continue to be meeting and I'll do the same as Crystal. I'll put the link in the chat before I hop off so that for anybody that's interested in attending can do so. These meetings are open to the public and public comment. So that's what I have. There's my contact information if anyone would like to email me or call me. And at this time, I would entertain any questions.
Thanks, Zach. Questions for Zach on our process? I appreciate the update and the great work that is going on, Zach. Thank you. Thank you both, Crystal, as well. Well, let's move on. We have Jake, who is our chief legal. If you'll see in the agenda, we've got 5 different bills that we're looking at this point. And Jake's going to go ahead and share with us about our guidance dealing with public and non-public participation.
Morning, everybody. Thank you. Can everybody see the guidance document, Senate Bill 157 on their screen? Yes, good. Okay, so we went over Senate Bill 157 and Senate Bill 72 at the last Education Advocate meeting, so I want to briefly touch on both of these. The point of sharing these on the screen is to let everybody know that both of these documents are now on the OPI website. They're searchable and findable. But a brief overview, again, Senate Bill 157 is a bill that's allowing students who are not enrolled in a public school to participate in extracurricular activities, and this is a K through 12 bill. Just a reminder that extracurricular activities are not just sports, but they're basically activities that are available to a public school student outside of normal coursework. So sports, speech and debate, clubs. The effective date on the bill was July 1st. And then again, this guidance document is available widely on the website if there's any questions about it. The second one is Senate Bill 72. This plays directly in with Senate Bill 157. Senate Bill 72 aims to amend section or title 29.311 of MCA. And how this is related is it allows for school districts to have a partial A and B calculation for students who are participating in these extracurricular activities. Senate Bill 72 actually identifies and defines the extracurricular activities. And so that's going to be here in section 5, but it's essentially sports or activities that are sanctioned by an organization having jurisdiction over the interscholastic activities or contests or tournaments. So this would be an example like high school basketball or speech and debate or science Olympiad. And I think the main thing to look at here kind of in the guidance when we're talking about A and B calculations is the amount of time the extracurricular activity has to go on for and the completion by a student. So if an activity is between 6 and 18 weeks and the student completes that activity, a school district can ask for or count that student as a 16th enrollment. If it's longer than 18 weeks, that's completed an 8th of an enrollment. And again, this guidance is on our website as well. The other 3 bills that I want to talk about are House bills. It's House Bills 207, 267, and House Bill 300. All three of these bills are related to school buses and school bus transportation. There's been a lot to unpack in these three bills, but just kind of a top-down view. I'll start with House Bill 207. House Bill 207 changes school bus lighting. And what it does is it amends 2010-111 to allow for 4 or more amber or red signal lights on a bus. It used to be it was just 4. So now it's 4 or more. That doesn't sound like a big change, but it does have some implications with school bus standardization and where to place these lights and how big these lights can be. Currently, their OPI had a meeting with community stakeholders, invited the bill sponsor. Representative Durham did participate in the community meeting. There were about 20 people in the meeting to discuss how all three of the bills, but specifically what administrative rules need to be changed and what those changes may look like. And there's going to be another committee meeting in September to try to compile a rule that can be proposed to the Board of Public Education. House Bill 267 has multiple different facets in it. It amends 61.8351 and it changes some penalties for passing a school bus when red lights are flashing. It also allows for school buses to be able to stop outside of a roadway to pick up and drop off students and not have to activate their red flashing lights. Just some highlights. The new law requires vehicles traveling in either direction, either oncoming or behind the bus, to stop in a roadway 30 feet from the bus when the red lights are on. It also makes it illegal to pass a bus on the right-hand side and increases the penalties there. The increase in penalties if you pass a bus on the right-hand side is up to $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail. So it's really aimed at making sure that traffic is stopping and buses are not being passed. But it also allows for some workability to where buses can pull off a roadway if it's safe to do so and not have to actually actuate their lights to stop traffic. It also adds the requirement that buses have to be equipped with an extended stop arm. What that is essentially a device that is going to be able to block a roadway or the oncoming lane of traffic is a way of thinking of it. The reason for that is that anytime that a student is crossing the roadway to either get on or exit the bus, want to have some more visibility out there for people on the roadway to make sure they're stopping and also make sure that they realize, hey, there's an obstruction here, to make sure they're not passing or try to make sure they're not passing when students are crossing. So again, there was a meeting on this in August. There'll be another meeting in September. The process is still ongoing with developing and changing the administrative rules to, for those issues in House Bill 267. House Bill 300, this is a short bill, but is proving somewhat difficult in some areas. House Bill 300 essentially allows for passenger vehicles, so not school buses or motor coaches, but passenger vehicles designed to transport 8 to 15 passengers to be used to transport students to essentially extracurricular activities or school-sponsored functions. Students could not be transported in these passenger vehicles on a regular bus route or to or from school. And again, there was the meeting where this was discussed in August and we'll be continuing to discuss in September. So these three bills are in an ongoing process, but OPI is working through that process with our community members, bill sponsors, and folks internally to get through the administrative rulemaking process. So if you have any questions about any of these bills, I'll put my contact information in the chat box here in a second, and feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake. Any questions of Jake? I know, I do believe Dr. Miller had asked where might this information be housed on our website. And I believe, Jake, we've got that? If not, ready to go.
Yes, it is posted on the website. The best way to find it is to go up into the search box. And if you type in SB 157 guidance or SB 72 guidance, both of those documents will pull up there in a PDF version.
Thank you. Mr. White, you're unmuted. Would you like to share?
Thank you very much, Superintendent. I would like to thank Jake for all his hard work on this and OPI in general, and appreciate all that had to be done so quickly. I just wanted to let everybody know that on our website, which is the homeschooling website, it's MT as in Montana, CHE.org. On the homepage, to keep everybody across the state kind of in tune as to what's been going on over the last couple of months on this, I essentially posted kind of a compilation of all of the documents from not just OPI, but also from the High School Association and the Q&A from the High School Association. And also there was some questions and things that the High School Association had to deal with what happens when you have a school district that has multiple high schools. Most of the questions that I've been fielding are from high school age type students, not too many from elementary, but for Kirk and the others that there's a lot of this is the OPI, but then the High School Association has had to adopt it too. And I haven't dealt that much with Senate Bill 72 because that's kind of a funding thing that isn't too important on the participation side. So mtche.org, people can go to there and see quite a bit of information related to mainly Senate Bill 157. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Steve. And I appreciate you reiterating what's happening with our Montana High School Sports Association. They've been great partners.
Yep.
As we've triangulated, this guidance. There was no rulemaking that went with this. We knew that the effective date was July 1 and wanted to make sure that there was uniform understanding in public as well as in non-public to serve our children wherever they might be. And the senators were great in all of this. So, and Jake, that's all because of your leadership as well. Any further questions regarding this, McCall? I see you're unmuted.
Thanks. I do have two quick questions. I wasn't able to be at the meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, but wondering if there were any conversations around who would bear the costs for the additional stop arms. And then also wondering if you guys have started discussing House Bill 543 at all. That was the one that was relative to our social studies standards and some of the changes that came during the legislative session.
Yeah, so to answer the question about funding, in terms of it being a funded or unfunded mandate from the legislature, it's unfunded. So that cost is going to be, shifted on to school districts or contractors, bus contractors. And in terms of the other, there's a whole host of bills that came out of the legislature that are going to affect OPI's administrative rules. And so, yes, we are looking at the other bills and working through those. These are just the ones that we're in the process of right now and thought we'd give an update on. But yeah, there's lots more to come.
Thank you, Jake. Any further questions? Thank you. All right. Mr. Kirksey and Dr. Merkel.
Good morning. Welcome from the world of ESSER. We thought we'd start today by giving just an overview of the statewide status of ESSER fund and ESSER fund usage. And then we want to shift to a conversation, and Dr. Merkel is going to step in and lead that conversation around some of the data requirements that are currently open for public comment from the U.S. Department of Education. So let me share my screen. Right. Okay. Are you seeing a chart?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. So what you're looking at here, and we'll go through this chart in two different halves. So just wanted to give you an update of where we're at with ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 allocations. Currently, we have 304 districts across the state that have applied for ESSER 1 funding and are utilizing those funds. I will tell you that it's a little misleading when you see 304 because some districts actually have one fiscal agent for 2 districts. So oftentimes, oftentimes communities that have a separate high school and elementary school district, one of those will be the fiscal agent, so they are the applicant. We really do have a good number of our school communities across the state served by ESSER 1 right now. That allocation was just over $41 million. Schools submitted budgets for their applications to the tune of about $38 million. And as of last Thursday, they had expended just under $26 million of those funds. And they do have until November 10th of 2022 to expend ESSER 1 dollars. With ESSER 2, we have 186 applications completed and approved to date. These applications are due September 1st, so this is an active application process right now. About 61% of anticipated applicants have been approved. This allocation is approximately $170 million. To date, with the 61% submitted, about almost $88 million is expressed in budgets. We expect to get much closer to that 170 number by the time the application process is over. They also have until September 1 to submit their budget through their e-grant application. And to date, and remember too, these funds have really only been available for schools to access and submit capital reimbursements and capital requests for since the beginning of the summer. But already about $8 million have been expended. And they actually have until November 10th of 2023 to expend those dollars. The last group and the smallest group right now, and there's a reason for that. So we have 36 LEAs across the state that have completed their ARP ESSER 3 e-grants application. And the reason for that is schools right now are working on their district ARP ESSER plan. And this is actually the plan that's required by the federal government that they actually articulate how they plan to use ESSER funds. That is due August 24th. And many schools are completing that process before they then go ahead and enter their budget information and submit their e-grant application. So I think what you're seeing right now is our early achievers are farther along in that process, but only about 12% of what we're anticipating. Total allocation there, just over $382 million. Only about 17 million budgeted to date, and $0 have been expended yet. So this is the newest fund where schools are actively working on plans and submitting budgets. A lot of questions about how these funds are being used across the state. And so let me walk you through that a little bit. And one thing, I'll explain the color coding here. The percentages that we're using in the green column for ESSER 1, that is based on actual expenditures. Because we have a good percentage of the funds that have been expended, we want to see kind of how those funds are actually being used. The yellow columns for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, those percentages are based on budgets that schools have submitted. And any of us who have been around education know for any amount of time that budgets are good plans, but plans don't always equate to reality. And so when the expenses come in and we get a good percentage of expenses coming in, then we can look at how funds have been actually spent. So, but I just think it's interesting, really the highest percentage really across the board of where schools are spending their ESSER dollars is really in staffing. So, but you can see as this has kind of progressed, there's different types of staffing that schools have invested in. So educators have always been top of the list, whether that's hiring additional specialists, paraprofessionals, but in ESSER 1 in particular, a lot of investment in technology support and IT staff for schools and in facilities, and of particular custodial staff and health and wellness, so nursing staff. That shifted as we've moved into the later phases of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We're seeing more paraprofessionals trying to increase that student to professional ratio. A lot more expenditures on counseling support services, trying to really attend to students' social and emotional needs, an increase in administration, and really that's administration of the ESSER funds. So schools, these ESSER funds do require a fair amount of work from our schools, and so the grant act does allow them to spend some funds on administering those funds. So we're seeing that there, and facilities continues to be a spending priority there too. So you can look back through. I won't go through all of it for you. I will hit. I think the property lines are really interesting. Kind of the evolution there. It is like HVAC. And so, and part of that is there was a big federal push to really get schools to think about renovating their HVAC systems to improve the air quality and circulation in their schools. And schools are really following up on that. So that gives you kind of a snapshot of what's happening with ESSER funds across the state. Happy to field more questions as we go, but I think at this point I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Mergel.
Thank you, Jeff. What I also want to say is that these, just a reiteration, any of the documents that you're seeing this morning will be sent out in our reflections. And any other questions you might have, of course, you can get a hold of Jeff here. And the other aspect, we're trying to formalize a process of information flow so that you get a top-down look. But if you have any questions that might be a little bit more weedy, we'd be happy to supply that information. So McCall, when it comes to the board and what the board might like, you've seen our first attempt at this. And I do know we also have Pat McCracken on with the Legislative Services. If there is something that you would like to see from the policymaker standpoint, we'd be happy to accommodate as well. Just a wealth of data that we have. We just don't want to flood in too much with that. Thank you, Jeff. And with this, then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Mergel and Julie.
Good morning, everybody. So the second portion here to just kind of quickly discuss with you is about ESSER data collection and reporting. The U.S. Department of Education put out into the Federal Register, and the link is there. And we'll put it here in the chat box for you, but it'll also be included in the packets afterwards. But it's an opportunity from the department to share feedback on the current data collection that they're proposing for ESSER. And those comments have to be back to them by August August 31st. They are seeking information on questions such as, will this form be difficult to complete and report on? Why? Are there any changes that could improve the quality of data or reduce the burden for responses? What are the overall challenges that you're seeing? What data is not proposed that maybe should be proposed? So there's a set of questions that they are asking for feedback on and are open for public comment, which again closes on August 31st. And so here at the OPI, we are putting together a response to submit to the department on what we are finding in terms of these requests. What we're seeing in what they're proposing is really 3 different areas that they want to report data on for ESSER. Fiscal of, how, as Jeff has just shared, how are those ESSER dollars being spent on program, as well as personnel. So you'll see here kind of the types of data that they're asking within those areas. So for fiscal, total amounts of allocated, obligated, and actual expenditures, but not just those amounts, but disaggregated by activity type within each grant and funding source and reporting period. A lot of data disaggregation by both the district level and the state level. And then descriptions of kind of how these funds have been used to address the students that have been most impacted by COVID. We move over into programming. There's quite a few questions that they're requesting in lots of different formats, from yes, no questions to numeric to open-ended responses. We see again a big emphasis on disaggregated data by student participation, some information around the safe school reopening policies for program, as well as maintenance of equity data. When you look at what they're proposing for personnel, it's really around FTE data by position type. Jeff just shared that we were seeing some different trends, right, in the kinds of staffing of the types of positions that we see as we look through ESSER 1 through ESSER 2 to ESSER 3. And then the FTA counts for each school in an LEA disaggregated by that type, and then kind of how that FTE is across schools within a district. So this is currently what they're proposing. We have been doing a crosswalk to get a sense of, and Jeff, you can kind of scroll down a little bit, around where are some of those pressure points or concerns for us, meaning where do we already have this data that we already collect through our systems of AIM, whether our Teams report, our TOES report, or within our eGrant system, as well as with our new ARP LEA district plan, some questions in there. And so we're trying to do a crosswalk to say, where do we see that we don't have that data and may have a gap? Or where do we see it might be a lot kind of erroneous and a lot of extra work and kind of burdensome, if you will, to be requesting additional data from our district. So we're kind of trying to unpack that and identify some of those areas of concern. So we've just kind of listed them here. For example, things that we're finding are that they're asking for information about funding for subgrantees. So if you have an after-school provider, such as, a Boys and Girls Club, are we collecting that data from that subgrantee? That's not currently something that we collect from our districts. We're also finding that in our LEA ARP ESSER plans, we're seeing some different kinds of social and emotional supports that are evidence-based that they're proposing, and yet the data that they're collecting on that evidence-based strategies are very limiting and do really not allow for a pretty wide range of social and emotional supports that we see districts using to really understand how these ESSER funds are being used in that programmatic way. We did include in the LEA ARP ESSER plan some questions around staffing to gather some data there in anticipation of this, but we are still in the process of kind of really digging in and unpacking to identify and crosswalk to say, what data do we have? How do we collect that? What does this mean for us? And what does this mean for our districts so that we can respond and really be thoughtful back to the department by August 31st. We certainly will be posting that information for all of you to also see what we do comment back to the department about this data collection. It is pretty intensive. I will tell you that it is pretty different from some of the other data collections that we have done previously in the past. So we are super thankful to our legislators for really on that 10% set aside, setting us some funding for data modernization. So I will stand for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Questions for Julie? Thank you. One of the things that in that crosswalk discussion, if there is new data that is requested of our districts, quite frankly, our districts are doing yeoman work as our doors open for this school year. And that more request does not remove the accountability for these dollars, but it also needs to be in a very meaningful manner that the data sharing occur. And the other aspect of this is using the data for a purpose to increase academics, social emotional learning, all of that districts do so well and want to do even greater as our doors open this fall. So we are trying to balance what this means. We would be happy to send what our comments back to them in a draft form for you to look at. I would encourage you to open up that link and in your precious time, see exactly what the requests are in this inquiry at this point. And then please respond to them so that we can show that Montana does directly care about being accountable, but also in a manner that is very meaningful to impact our students. So this is something that I believe everyone needs to have a conversation about. Any comments or questions? Thank you, Julie. Then to have a quick note on this, we have a couple programs that we are working on to enhance the parental involvement. One of them is through our military children's. We embrace a military compact that all states across and the 4 territories across our nation have. Jessica Flint is going to share with you about the application for Purple Star. Jessica.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you guys today. So as Superintendent Arntzen said, I'm working with the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, or MIC3. And just to give you sort of a background, it was adopted by the 63rd legislature, and the mission is to remove barriers to the educational success for our military connected students. So we work a lot state to state with families who are getting relocated to Montana on military orders. We have Commissioner Hal Stearns out of Missoula, who sits on the commission. We have Representative Buttery, Montana High School Association Executive Director Mark Beckman, Paul Fowler, who is the Service Member Family Support with the Montana Army National Guard. We have Lisa Sapp out of Great Falls, who is the Child and Youth Education Services School Liaison at Malmstrom. And then of course we have Superintendent Arntzen. So the applications that we recently opened are for the Purple Star Schools Award and the Purple Star Champion Award. And last year we were blessed to have 5 schools that were recognized by the commission for the Purple Star Schools Award. And what that is to recognize schools that go above and beyond for our military students and their families, and just really want to lift them up and recognize them for serving those who serve us. And the Champions Award, which is new this year, will recognize school staff, principals. It can recognize a community member that are doing the same. If it's to recognize an individual that has gone above and beyond for these military families and their children. And then I just wanted to let you know the deadline to apply for these or to nominate someone for one of these awards. If you know somebody, we would really love to get, we had 5 schools last year, as I said, we'd love to get to 20 this year and just recognize and shout out the great work that they're doing. And would really appreciate your help if you know or want to help spread the word. The application is on the OPI website. We'll send that out after this meeting along with the press release that went out. So you have sort of all the information right in front of you. And please do encourage folks to go to our website and apply. The deadline's October 31st. And if you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions you might have on Purple Star Awards for schools and also for our new Purple Champions? These Purple Star Champions can be anyone that is in a community, could be anyone that aids the school, could be someone from the secretary or the custodian, to really help and recognize as our students are also serving as their families do. So Jessica, thank you for that. It's been almost an hour-long meeting, and I thank you for participating and for listening. The information will be flowing out through as soon as we can get and gather all these things together. We will have another one that's going to take place in September, and mark your calendars. It'll be the 21st of September. And that will be after that great week when we have the Board of Regents, we have interim committee, we have finance committees, and we also have Board of Public Ed. So it's going to be a very busy week, the week prior to that. Any other questions that you might have of anyone that has given their great expert knowledge today? Thank you. I appreciate your attendance again, and I want to thank our OPI staff for all their attention as we move forward. And one more time, let's just be very mindful and prayerful as our schools open for our school leaders, our teachers, for our parents, and more importantly for our students as they walk through our Montana public school doors this fall. With that, everyone, please stay well. Thank you.